Welcome, happy to be with you. I have to say it's a real pleasure to do talks in English actually, because it's makes them exciting again. So I want to say thank you for everyone to be here. So today we are talking about founder's dilemma. And you see in the title there is this warning, there is a dilemma to get founders because it's hard, it's not very common that it works well. And I want just to give you a single point of data. Like 90% of failing company at the family, 90% of failing company at the family, it's because of a founder problem at some point. So of course it works the other way around. When companies are not doing well, it's more easy to get trouble between founders. So of course it's a very weak point of data, but we have this feeling that if the team is not strong, if the team is not together forever, it will be harder to survive and do something great. So there is an article I read a long time ago. I think it's in 2008 or 2009. It's a long time ago, written by Paul Graham from Y Combinator, that was trying to understand the 5 top qualities that make every founder a good founder. And we love this article at the family. We use it all time long. And we love this framework with these 5 qualities that I want to dig deep into today together: determination, courage, flexibility, imagination, friendship. Like, it's a framework we try to use to every founder joining the family. It's a framework we try to use for everyone, and we copy it from PG with our own perspective. And I think our perspective is a little bit different about that. But I want to start with something important. I think you had noticed something, is that intelligence is missing. Like, there is not, like, if you ask people about what makes a good founder, I think 80% of people outside our world will say it needs to be smart. Like, will not say, you know, it needs to be stupid. Actually, we will not say that a good founder needs to be stupid. We will say that being stupid or being smart doesn't have any influence on your capacity of being a good founder. And that's a good news for a lot of people. So why is that? Why being smart is not important? It's not important because being smart doesn't have any impact on what you will do as an entrepreneur. It will have much more impact on what you can do. So let me explain that. If you are stupid, you should go in real estate, for example, because stupid people in real estate thrive, and I'm sorry if there is anyone in real estate here. But the fact is that if you look Donald Trump and look at that framework with Donald Trump, it's kind of 5 on 5 on every quality. Like determination, like you can hate Donald Trump, like it's very easy to hate him, but no one will not say that he has lack of determination. Courage, like yeah, for sure. He has a lot of courage, he's ready to say things that will make anyone ashamed forever, and he say it without any conscience. Flexibility. He's so flexible in his mind that he can organize a debate of Trump versus Trump. Like, he changed his mind so many times about so many things that even American political journalists are making articles with both versions of the same Donald Trump. But that's a great quality, actually. I will come back to that, but it's, I mean, not in politics. I have no idea about politics, but in entrepreneurship is a good one. Imagination. Like, that guy is dreaming to go to the White House. You cannot say he has a lack of imagination. Like, for sure, his imagination is unlimited. And friendship. And something you have to say about these kind of people is that every single people they work for or have worked with are always telling you that they are in love for them. Like, it can seem surprising, but Donald Trump ads and camp, like, they really, when they talk about him, you have the feeling that that guy is their best friend. And that is very common to a lot of very good leaders, is that they create this feeling around them that people are more than employee or partners, but they are real friends. So being smart is a commodity. And why it's a commodity? It's commodity because first it become very, very common to be smart. It's something new in the world, you know? Like not long time ago, being someone smart was something rare. It was something that was so uncommon that people will celebrate it. You have to think that we are living in a world where there is more mathematicians alive than the total number of mathematicians in history of humankind. You have to think that we are in a world where anyone can get an MBA after hard work. Like, I mean, 60 years ago, having an MBA was a top elite of maybe 5,000 people around the world. Having higher education 20 years ago or 30 years ago, 50 years ago was tough, hard. Now it become more common. And I'm not talking about the effect of internet, about smartness that create this kind of global emulation where anyone can learn anything he wants. Like the only distance now between what you don't know and what you want to know is only the capacity you will have to put hard work in that and the capacity of learning new things. So that is something totally new that changed the landscape of entrepreneurship. So if you take an example like Elon Musk is maybe one of the smartest people alive, for sure. He can go from electrical car to space. Odyssey build a time loop, or I don't remember what's the name of this thing, like Hyperloop, on his spare time. Like, oh, yeah, what did you do yesterday? Oh, yeah, I watched a TV show. And you? Oh, I built an Hyperloop. Okay. so you see, it can be in the field. So I think one of the advice I will give to smart people is that you should be always more stupid than the market you try to attack. Because that's the best way to never be bored. Even if you are smart like Elon Musk, going to Mars is complicated. And it's horrible and takes a lot of effort and problem. And if you are Donald Trump, building something with real estate is complicated because you are maybe a little bit more limited. I will have trouble with this video. It's like, you know what will be incredible is that the guy tweet, oh, I saw the video of that guy, that Muslim in France. that will be awesome. So, so let's go and let's dig on the first quality, determination. So what is determination? Determination is, I talked about that many times already, and you know the secret with a good teaching is to repeat, until people are so over it that they accept it. So determination is about the fact that as an entrepreneur, you have this kind of intensity that makes you very different from the average. Determination is that you never take a no for anything else than a maybe. And determination is about the fact that you will pursue what you are doing, whatever cost, whatever effort, whatever violence it requires to get to that point. And that kind of determination is very, very important for two reasons. The first reason is that you are living in a static world at every single point of time. Like the world you are in is in a static state. And if you want to change the world in the side that it will profit you, and that's what it is about creating a company, is that you try to change the world in a sense that you will take leverage of that change to get value for you, your company, and what you are building. To do that, you need an incredible energy. Like think about having a very big ball and you want to push it to go with it. Like maybe after a few movements it will go by itself, but at the beginning the level of energy and intensity you need to put on that push is very, very high. And this is why determination is very important. But that's for say, there is a difference between determination and obstination. Obstination is one of the worst quality that you can get as an entrepreneur. What is obstination? Obstination is trying to do every day exactly the same thing with only one goal, that one day will succeed. That never works. Like obstination in entrepreneurship always ends by failure because if it doesn't work, it will not work later. Determination is about the fact that every day you will try as hard as possible to do whatever you can do to achieve something new. And this is why determination always comes down with another quality that is flexibility. Like there is a couple between determination and flexibility is that if your determination is not flexible enough, so each time you get a data, you change your mindset thanks to that data, you will never be able to succeed. You know, Jeff Bezos have this expression that say, as someone smart, I change my mind 10 times a day, because 10 times a day I have a new data that will change my mind. And I think that as an entrepreneur, you should have this kind of weird attitude where you always believe at 100% what you say, and you should always push what you are saying at 1000%, but be ready to change that, whatever data will provide you a change in that sense. And that's what is important about the flexibility mindset, is that you should be able to tell yourself, oh, okay, I was sure that A was a good thing, but now I have data that show that B is better, so let's go for B. Because that's what's called learning. Like, it's not because you have determination, it's not because you have intensity that you cannot learn things. And as an entrepreneur, every day you will learn new things. Every day you will be in a situation where you will change your mind about what you are doing, and that's fine, because that kind of flexibility will help you to figure out what works. And don't forget, like many startups are starting by doing something very different than what they will end up being successful for. It's very common for a very good team to realize that something doesn't really work and to change their mind on the way. So this couple between flexibility and determination is very important. And one of the key to stay very, very flexible is that you should always live in present. If I can give you one single piece of advice, reduce your time horizon, reduce your timeline, be like living in present as much as possible, and don't over-plan. Like, planning is really for suckers. Like, people plan because they are worried. People plan because they need that plan to feel comfortable about what they are doing. And if you are serious about being an entrepreneur, you should reduce your time scale and time frame to the smallest one. So determination also comes down to another set of quality that is courage. So courage is a kind of, foundation for every other quality. And I think it's very important to understand that, because very easy to be honest until the moment you have an opportunity to don't be. It's very easy to be whatever quality, define it, until the moment you have an opportunity to get an advantage of not being that. And that's where you need courage. You need courage in very small details as an entrepreneur. Let's take an example. As an entrepreneur, you will get thousands and thousands of feedbacks. You know how a confused entrepreneur look like? It's very easy. It's the kind of people that listen to feedback. I'm not saying that good entrepreneurs don't listen to feedback. I'm saying good entrepreneurs know when to listen to and when not. And even if they are wrong, they are fine with that. Because they are not worried about being wrong. They are not worried, they are not trying to prevent the fact that sometimes they will have downside. They are here to maximize the kind of upside they can get. And that's where courage comes down to, is that you need, as an entrepreneur, to be aware that most of the things you will do will fail and that hurt. And being comfortable with that is going down to be very, very courageous. And being courageous is something you should train yourself to. It's something that you should exercise, and everything in your life should be driven by what you think and not what you think that people should think about you. And that's why most people are not courageous, because they are driven by social proof. They are driven by the opinion of others. And if opinions of others matter to you, you will never build something strong. And I know it's not easy, it's hard, and we all need love at some point. We all need recognition. We all need that people tell us that what we are doing is great. But that need should never go on the way of taking the right decision. This is why your determination comes with flexibility and courage. So courage helps to never give up. And I think that, we have this romantic view of failure, mostly because of the media. We hear so many times about extraordinary stories of entrepreneurs that fail big. But what is missing as a disclaimer in all this article is that we are talking about the kind of failure that 99% of entrepreneurs will never live. Like 99% of failure in entrepreneurships are failure of the kind like two guys in a room, they want to build a social network for dogs and they don't agree on the dog's picture on the homepage and they split out and the next day they close their startup. So I think that only represents 80% of failure of startup. And you see how it looks like. It looks like miserable because most of startups you never heard about. Most of startups are made by people that are totally unknown and they don't even have the opportunity to lose money because they even don't have the opportunity to get money from people to lose. So the never give up attitude is very, very important because the single definition of a startup at the beginning is a company that is sustained by the determination of the founders. Like, I think that can be one of the best definition of startup because most of the time, it's not a startup doesn't fail because someone come and unplug the computer and say, you need to pay your debt. Most of the time, it failed because people are so discouraged that they don't want to go to the next step. And having this kind of attitude of never giving up is a kind of attitude that can bring you to the next stage. And that comes down to having a lot of courage. That to say, you should never forget data. And again, I will insist on that. There is a big difference between all of what I talk about and obstination. Obstination is bad because obstination is blind. Like, courage can be incredible if you have a data point that will tell you, look, I look like a failure, but in my heart I know that I'm success because I have that data that you did not realize how important it is. For example, we have a company at the family that everyone thinks it's a failure, and I'm sure it's one of our biggest success so far. And why it's not a company we talk in the media, but each time you talk to the founder, he always tell you the same thing. My retention is going higher. Okay, I don't have many users. Okay, I'm not growing like a unicorn should grow. Okay, I'm slow and I will be a late boomer. But everyone using my product is at 95% a user for life. And that metric is so extraordinary, so out of the chart, that the guy accepted horrible life condition for 6 years. The good example of that is Frédéric Mazella with BlaBlaCar. Like, that team tried so much to fundraise with so many people, and no one never wanted to invest. And they keep pushing. Like, they even had that joke internally saying, we will eat pasta for 1 month more. Like, that shows you really the kind of mindset that makes incredible entrepreneurs. Like, you don't imagine the respect I can have for a team like BlaBlaCar team to go through that kind of time scale with everyone laughing at you. Like, imagine what you had to think of BlaBlaCar 10 years ago. Oh yeah, your company is about putting people in same car and going somewhere together. Yeah, good luck. Yeah, it's so hard to find a job nowadays. And I'm sure they heard that so many times. Like, do you think the family was like, wow, that's so great, 6 years without revenue. Wow, keep pushing. Do you think their wife or their girlfriends are happy like, oh, you did one of the best school in France. You worked at NASA and you are doing a website without user? Yeah, great. Like, it seems so romantic. Like, of course, everyone around them told them that it should drop, and they did not because they had data. Because, okay, the marketplace was not liquid. Okay, it was not the success, the fast success it should be, but the retention, the user satisfaction, everything that defined a good company was here. and they believed in it. And because they believed in it, they can go to the next step. So all of that will be nothing as an entrepreneur if you don't have imagination. It's something that is kind of weird to talk about because I don't think anyone talk about training imagination. So, you know, imagination is a thing we all had at some point in our life when we was kids. Like, you know, like every small kid have imagination. Like if you take an average 4 years old and you tell him to invent something, he will have all this crazy idea because he doesn't have the education of what is possible and what is not. And there is a story I love is the divergent thinking. Like divergent thinking is a capacity that we can evaluate on like IQ, and that a lot of psychologists will take as not imagination, but as a very important part of imagination. So what is divergent thinking? Divergent thinking is a capacity of imagining the usage of something for something else. And the very good example of that is a paperclip. Like, what can you do with a paperclip? Like, how many, if we start to brainstorm right now, how many usage we will have of a paperclip? So, I think very serious and bored adult will tell you a paperclip is to clip paper. And it's a fine answer. But if you do that with children, you will see that they have so much imagination. They can build toys, they can build fishing tools, they can build thousands of things that you will never imagine of. And the funny thing is that one guy started to discover that if you look at the divergent thinking capabilities of someone over his life, it decreases. Because we all have this problem is that we went to school, and school is one of the first killer of divergent thinking out there. And it's horrible because it kills it forever, and it's like a muscle that you never use, that when you want to use it back, it hurts. But the good news is that if you realize that, if you are aware that imagination is something you can train, you will be in position where you can improve it and improve that capacity. And that is the most important quality for an entrepreneur, to build something great. Because imagination will help you think out of the box. You know, think out of the box become this consulting bullshit that anyone in consulting industry will tell you now. Yeah, let's be disruptive. You need to think out of the box. But actually, it's a very, very important expression. It should not be commoditized. It's about the fact that some people are ready to think out of the rules. And it's so important. Like, if you look at everything that makes entrepreneurs exceptional as individuals, it always comes down to this capacity to think that something impossible becomes possible. And that comes down to imagination. It comes down to the capacity to imagine things that don't exist. And you notice that with them when you have the luck, like me, to live your life with entrepreneurs. You realize that you are talking to people that never see the world like anyone. Like if you look about all our best friends that are the best entrepreneurs in town, they always have like divergent view about everything. Their life, their way of living, their way of eating, everything in their life look weird because their imagination never stop. So they will not tell you that something it's possible or impossible, they will just do it because they have this capacity of living a different and parallel life. And that, I think, is a question of formal training. I have this feeling that most of them are not born like that, because we are all born like that. Our imagination capacity at beginning is almost incredible and unlimited. And we just close it, you know, like, I really think it's like a muscle, and we need to work around that. So, how can you train your imagination? You can do a lot of things. And one of the things is that you should all do creative works, like writing bad novels or reading a lot, or watching a lot of movies, or talking to a lot of people, or even inventing things that will never exist, but just do that exercise of thinking like, what can I do? Like if I do Google, what I will do different. That's one of my favorite game. I call that ruling the world. It's a very personal and private game. I should not talk about that in public, I will have trouble. But for example, I have a list on my computer of the 10 things I will do if I become CEO of a company. So I have it for Facebook, Google, a model agency, whatever. Like there is so many things that you can project yourself, and it can seem lame. And of course, it seems lame when you talk about it in public, on stage with a microphone. But very important. Very important because it's a muscle. You need to prepare it for the day you will need it for yourself. And you don't imagine that when you train that, what kind of super magical power you can have. For example, I will tell another secret, and it's not something powerful, but it really defined, is that I did that for so many years that now half of my ideas come from my sleep. And there is very scientific reason for that. It's just that you specialize your brain so much about always thinking about new way that all your brain redefine around that. You don't imagine how many times I said this sentence. You know what? Yesterday I was sleeping and I think of, and people are like, can you stop 5 minutes? And no, because I cannot stop anymore. And that's what makes it extraordinary. And I think that because in our school system and in our education, we forget the value of imagination. And we have, like, look, in school, you can choose between writing a novel when you are in small or writing a dissertation or an essay. Like, it's so weird. It's not, it's like, okay, so there is few people that are not serious, so they will take the imagination work. And of course, the one that will good grades, they will take the essay or dissertation. It doesn't make sense. It's like if you say to someone, look, we will evaluate your capacity and you have to choose between going to lunch or swimming. Like, really? And you will evaluate me on same criteria? No, if you go to lunch, you will have a bad grade. If you swim, we will say that you swim well. And that's really show the problem our school system has with imagination. And we should all fight back against that. And there is thousands of exercises, there is thousands of games. Like, you don't imagine how many brain games there is online that can train imagination and problem solving and pattern matching and thinking out of the box. And most of them are fun, because that's one of the things, is that capacity is one of the most fun capacity to develop. Like, and by the way, it's something you do by yourself. Like, if you go to I saw that imagination training center. Like, that's a scam. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, it's very intimate to develop your own kind of imagination. So if you have determination, courage, flexibility, and imagination, at some point you will need something with you, is a team. And I think that there is a huge confusion about how we should build a co-founding team. We already talked about that together, but it's important to understand that the single most element part of a good founding team is friendship. Like, you know, there is still this very surprising answer to that very common question. Should I build a business with my friends? And so many fuckers reply, no, it should not be with your friend. It's a serious business. Like, with who are you doing something serious and trustful if it's not your friend? Like, what's for these people the definition of friend? Like, I don't want to be their friend, by the way. Like, it should be horrible. Like, the good definition of friend is someone you trust so much that you can do whatever you want together. And you know what? If it fails because it's your friend, it's because it's not a real friend. It's a very good filter. It's a very good criteria. Like, you instead of spending 10 times with someone that doesn't deserve it, in a year you can learn that he's not at the level, and that's great. So all these things about friendship, don't realize how much inside a startup, being with friends is what will preserve everything that I talked before about. Because the probability that everyone is up on all this quality all time long at 100% is so low. Of course, there will be points where your determination will be weak. Of course, there will be points where your courage will not be at the top. Of course, there will be points where you will miss a part of the data and you will not be able to realize it. And that's all the moments where you need your friends to take the good decision. That's all the moments where you need to be so trustful with people, so cheerful that you are ready to learn with them together and build something together. That's what makes an incredible founding team. Like, if you admire everyone around you working with you, you will be in much better position to take hard decisions. That if you are always wondering if people around you wants to set you up or to screw you up. And that's not the kind of environment you should be in as a founder. You should be ready to give your bank account and credit card and all your life to your co-founders. Because that's what friends do. Like, if you are sleeping in the house with your friend, you will not hide your wallet. Because you will, like, I hope you will not do that, by the way. And if you do that, change your friends. Like, there is a problem with you or them, but the two ways around, there is a problem. So, if you don't have this kind of mental comfort, you will always have trouble. For example, there is one thing I see so often, is that when people start a company, they will not talk about what would be the position of everyone. You know, so many teams start out and they don't sit down and say, you are the CEO, he's the CTO, and this one is the chief designer officer. So they will just start all be equal together, working together, taking all decisions together. And one day someone external will arrive, most of the time to put money, and he will say, who will be the CEO? And people will be like, yeah, so, you know, we don't really have a CEO, we will be two CEO, blah, blah, blah. And that never works. Like, if you cannot be aware of who is the leader in the group, and that if that doesn't make unanimity around yourself, it means that you are not a real group. Because there is always someone that people will refer to the one as a leader. That's it. And the CEO is not the smartest people. The CEO is not the guy that knows how to do the accounting or the business. Like, there is so many bad definitions of CEO in Europe. Like, we met a startup last week in Spain, and they say, yeah, he's a CEO because he's doing the accounting. And I was like, my God, really? Like, take an accountant in that case. Like, he will be cheaper than a CEO. And people have all this weird definition. Oh, he's a CEO because he's doing sales. Oh, he's a CEO because blah, blah. No, all of that is wrong. He's a CEO because he has the last word. That's it. Like, if there is a debate and someone needs to take the last word, who will be? And that person that have always the last word, he will be the CEO. That's it. There is no debate around that. And if there is no debate around that, it's because there is a very high level of friendship between people in the team. If you don't have this kind of blind friendship between people working together, it will never work. Never. It's like you can forget it directly. And why? Because it's hard. Because most of the time you will fail. Because most of the time you will be in position where you will not know what to do next. And in that kind of position, friendship can help you survive. That's why friendship is so important. And if you have all of that, you have the last quality that every good founding team needs to have, is naughtiness. Very important to understand, you cannot play 100% by the rules. And actually, you need to know what rules are important and which rules are not. So that's a very ethical and personal decision to take. And the only way to be very naughty is to have a very high level of self-ethic. Because you need to understand what you consider as important and what you consider as a social norm that is fine to break because it doesn't make sense. I will give you, for example, my opinion about spamming. You know, a lot of people hate spam. I hate when I get spam. I'm not that kind of people that say, oh, spam, that's so nice. No, everyone hates spam. And I spam a lot. And I don't care. And you know why? Because I think that every message I send has so much value that I'm comfortable with this idea. Because my definition of spam is not an email that I ask for or not. My definition of spam is a crappy email. Spam equals crappy email. Of course the law doesn't say that. Of course the law says you should not spam. And what I'm telling you is that if you don't spam, you will die. Because if people that don't know your business doesn't have the opportunity one day to know your business, you will never reach the next step. So of course there is a good way to spam and a bad way to spam. The good way to spam is always sending an email that is unsolicited, but to someone that will love to receive that email. The good way to spam is that each time you spam someone, you will be behind your computer and reply directly, not sending that with a no reply email. The good way to spam is that you will be always supporting anyone that is angry against you and explain why you do that and make a sincere apology. And never try to explain yourself more than, look, I'm sorry, I'm taking you out of the list and I will try to don't send you spam anymore. But out of all this personal ethical rule, you should spam like hell. You should spam like hell because you have only one duty as an entrepreneur, is that people should be aware that what you are doing is important, good, and they need it. And if 99% of the people you spam reply hard to you and no one take any value from that and you don't have any good thing from that, the problem is not that you are spamming. The problem is that you are doing shit. And you should take that as a feedback and do something else or make your product better or be in another market or learn to write better emails. So you see, having that kind of mindset, that kind of attitude around the rules is what makes good entrepreneurs. This is why hackers are so good entrepreneurs in average. Attention, the only country on earth that thinks that hackers equal engineers is continental Europe. So there is a big difference between going to an engineer school and being an hacker. Being an hacker is a mindset. It's a mindset that comes down to three simple things. First thing, you learn by yourself, and you know how to learn by yourself. The second thing is that if something is closed, it's just an opportunity to break it. And the third rule of good hackers is that whatever you are doing, it should always provide value for the community. And you should give back. And you should be paid forward. And that's why that mindset works so well with entrepreneurs. Because the hacker mindset, and you can all read the hacker manifesto, that is kind of religious view of what the hacker of a mindset is. The hacker manifesto really emphasizes all this quality. And this is why it's so common to have hackers that become so good entrepreneurs. Because they know what is important, what is not. They know what they can break and what they cannot break. And they know what kind of naughtiness is good or not. This is why every good entrepreneurs are a little bit naughty. So there are no golden rules. You have to understand, you can check that box. You can try to evaluate people around that framework. You can try to build a team. I don't think that everyone can have these 5 qualities at the top. It's very uncommon. What happens is that you will have a team that will have a part of this quality, and together they will represent a group that have these 5 qualities. And you see, looking for this quality is not a question of looking for skills or looking for things. Being co-founders is not necessarily about being complementary. If you take Larry Page and Sergey Brin on the paper, they are exactly the same. Did the same school, same PhD, same knowledge. But if you look at this set of quality, they don't share exactly the same pattern. They have both determination, but for every other rules, there is one that will be more on the side of the quality than another. So if there is no golden rules, you have to understand that the only way to work out for a team is to build your own story. You can listen to a lot of people that tell you what's a good founding team, how to act, blah, blah, blah. But it comes down to something very simple. You should have a very transparent communication in your team, and you should be ready to take the decisions that are harsh to take together, and you should have a very flawless leadership. Like you need to know who is the boss, and you need to listen to that, and you need to be comfortable to that, and you need to admire each other's. So out of that, there is thousands of specific cases, there is thousands of things, and also let me be clear about that. Okay, I will assume it. Every people that find it hard to get the co-founders are people that at some point have a little bit of personality problem with themselves. Because there is 7 billion people on Earth, there is thousands of opportunities, and you can meet people in the street, and there is people easy with people, and there is people hard with people. Like good founders, most of the time are easy with people, because they know that they need to trust people, even if they don't have every guarantee, and that's the way they will grow up and build together. Because a story is built. Like it's not a team, like, we have this idea that a founding team is perfect from the beginning, and because it's perfect, it creates a great company. No, perfect founding team become perfect together. They learn together, they grew up together, they become very specialized and different together. And that's what is in common. What happens most of the time is that you will have one founder that will go up and learn things, and the two other founders or the other founder will stay on the ground. And because he's a founder, he will think that he has this infinite position for life, where because he's a founder, he has the last word on everything, and he needs to be interrogated about everything. That's not how it works in real life. How it works in real life is that the co-founding team is pushed by every single employee that will join the company. Because people that join your company will not be like, oh, that's great, you have been here from the beginning. They will be like, oh, that's great, you have so much luck. And that luck will never justify your power if you don't work hard for it. So be aware of that. It's like, there is no golden rules. It's not because you are here from the beginning that you will come down. If you are the CEO, if you are this special founder, there's two levels of founders. There is co-founders and CEO. CEO are very special because they are the number one. There is some advantage of being CEO. There is a lot of downside. So what are the upsides? The upside is that you are well known. Every success in your company at some point come down back to you, because someone in your company will have a great idea and everybody outside will be like, oh, that's the CEO idea, and that's fine. And everyone should be fine with that, because that's the best communication strategy. Making someone in the team look like having superpowers is one of the oldest communication strategy to build power. If you are disciplined and you want to win, you should never be driven by your ego. You should be like, yeah, that's fine. He has superpower. And you should tell that story. For example, I tell that Alice has superpower to everyone. And she has superpower, actually. So that's how you build cohesion inside your team. That's how you build fear around your competitors. But in the other way, one of the downsides is that as a CEO, you need to be a top manager. And being a top manager is not about the boring part of being a manager, but it's about the very important part of listening to people and be ready to take decisions when things are not going well, and be ready to have open conversation for every problem that will happen in your company. That's why one of my advice is put always the most sensible person as a CEO. Because sensible people, they will be ready to listen to what happened, and they will feel if something is wrong or not. And sensibility is one of the ways to be sure that everyone feels well inside your team. So one of the disequilibrium between entrepreneurs come down so many times because one of you gets the idea and pitch others for this idea. And especially in Europe, we have such a high value of ideas. We say, oh, that guy is an entrepreneur, he had a great idea. And yeah, of course, because he had an idea and it happened. like it didn't work, and he's the only one on earth to add an ID, and blah blah. And that is annoying. We can talk all day long about the fact that ID is only 1% of the job and 99% is execution, blah 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 blah. But what is important to say about that is that the equity split between founders should not never be driven by the fact that someone had the ID. And the position as CEO or anything that will make inequality between founders should never be driven by who got the ID. Like having the ID is a commodity. Like it can be random guy in the team. It doesn't mean anything. Look at Twitter. The guy that got the ID gets fired. So it shows that it's not a question of having an ID. It's something else. A startup is not a democracy. I think that's something, let's see if it's always true in 20 years and if people survive to that, because we have this democratic collective passion. And understand that startup that works well are startups where there is someone that can take very, very bold decisions against everyone inside the team, and the team survive. I don't know if that story is true or not. I should ask one day if it's true. But someone told me that when Mark Zuckerberg decided to don't sell Yahoo, half of the executive left the company. Half of the top employees left the company because they are so pissed off that the guy did not sell the company, and they realized that the money was not a big drive for him. That's something, if it happens to you, will be a very good news. Why? Because it takes out everyone that is not aligned with you, and there was a problem of selection. That doesn't say that he was right to don't sell. I mean, he can have sell and be a very fair founder. It will just be a different kind of founder. And people inside the company should understand that sometimes founders make mistakes because they are founders, because it's their opinion, and it's not a big deal to spend all your time discussing that. So democracy doesn't work inside startup because what works inside startup is execution, and execution comes down to the fact that at a certain point, people don't over-engage and over-debate on every single point of element. This is not to say that a startup, no one needs to have strong opinion and push back, and when there is someone making a mistake, it should not try to avoid that mistake. I mean, it's a schizophrenia between both. It's a both world where hierarchy in startup should not count, and an intern, even if it's an intern, should be ready to do incredible things if he's able to do incredible things. And startups are an incredible environment because they are very meritocratic, meaning that the merits of people are pay off and pay back very directly. But on the same time, it's not a democracy. And at some moment, on some big things, you need someone to take a decision that can go against the feeling of everyone. And that is not important. And this is why you need, as a founding team, to be comfortable in chaos. And I think that's one of the elements that makes so many entrepreneurs failing, is that they are not comfortable with chaos because they want to have orders and rule the orders. And that is not what should be in a startup. You should be fine with the fact that you are totally late about what happened in your startup, and you should be fine about the fact that you are not handling every single thing, and that sometimes your startup is growing faster than your capabilities to manage that. And that's one of the best news ever. So, 2 startup killers. The first one is to forget that cash is king. You need to understand as a founding team that your job as founders is to always be aware of when you will have money in the bank and how you will get money. And don't fool yourself. Cash is the only metric that defines a startup. And let's be realistic, especially in Europe, where there is less venture capital money available. So be very aware that the cash is a mission. And the second thing that broke every company is fight between founders. And I started by saying that, and I will end by saying that, is that most of company cannot survive an early divorce inside the company. Like divorce inside between founders, it are so complicated, so mad, so difficult to manage that so many people cannot survive that step of the story of a company. And I don't know why, and I have a surprise with that. You know, like when I started the family, I talked with divorce lawyer. And I asked every divorce lawyer I can meet this simple question. How people that live naked together for many years can end up not talking to each other? I don't know if that's something you ask yourself about, but me, it's so strange, I don't get it. Okay, you can change opinion about people. You can decide that is not, you know, too old, too ugly, too, I don't know, like, you can have so many reasons to divorce. But not being able to communicate, again, it's weird. Because you was only doing that for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And everyone reply exactly the same thing, is that it's so emotional that there is no rational scheme to see behind that. It's so emotional that sometimes people are so mad, so angry, so betrayed, so irrational, that everyone outside cannot understand the rationality of their act. And that's how people can do very complicated divorce, destroy everything they build, lose so many money, and makes lawyer rich. That's the exactly same pattern with founders. Is that when founders fight, the only person that survive that fight are the lawyers managing the fight. Like there are always a single person that makes most of money on this kind of situation and no one else. So if that happened to you, if you are in a situation where you want to divorce clean and quick, and don't look back and don't take a lawyer to fight for your rights, because your rights don't matter. Like the amount of energy you will spend to defend yourself will always be more expensive than the energy you will put to build something new. And I can tell you a personal story about that. Like I had a divorce, a co-founding divorce 7 years ago. And from 7 years, I'm working hard, building new things, and we are still in the divorce. Like they did not do anything else. They are suing me every year, and every year they lose because no one understands what they are suing about. And the guy are still 7 years back. 7 fucking years of a life of just waiting to get something at me. And to be honest, I don't even remember why we fight. Like if you ask me, I have this confused idea that we did not agree on something at that point. And I don't care. And I live well, and they don't. Like, choose your side. Like, if you are, even if it's unfair, even if you are right, my single best advice in the case of founder fight is run away. Take a small check if you can and run away. Don't stay in that because it never brings anything positive. And everything like ego or reputation or image of yourself or your self-definition of success doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you can be free again and find someone new. And it's exactly the same thing than any other situation in your life that imply very high level of conflict. Like very high level of conflict never bring anything. So just to sum up a little bit, to build a good founding team, you need to focus on human quality and not skills. Skills are secondary. The kind of human quality that define founders and that you should look for with other people's are also the kind of quality you should look at yourself to decide if you're a good founder or not, and also the kind of things you should work on if you want to be a better founder. And all of that come down to a very open, trusted relationship. And if you cannot have this kind of openness or trust, forget it and work to a big company. Because in a big company, no one cares if you trust anyone, because that's not what is important there. So if you want to be in the world of startup, be trustful, because you know what? There is nothing that will protect you. I will tell you a joke that I love to tell. The family signed the co-founding agreement between the co-founder 2 weeks ago. Okay? Just you realize. Like, the fact is that it's so complicated to put down on paper things, blah, 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 that most of the time it doesn't make sense. Just move and do it well. Because human relationships are never managed by contract. Like, you cannot put trust in a contract. Contracts are useful because one day a tax auditor will ask it and you need to prove that something is real. So you do legals for the legals needs. But for your relationship, it doesn't matter. And you know what? I will tell you a story that I love to tell now because we lived it 2 weeks ago. We spent the first year at the family not really taking equity inside the company. And I will tell you a secret. It's expensive to take equity inside company because you need a lawyer, you need to do papers and blah, blah, blah. And we was focusing on helping companies, not on making our lawyer rich. So we did not really add a process with the first 50 or 60 company joining the family. We was always doing like, yeah, you are in, we take X% of equity. And people was like, yeah, how we do that? Yeah, let's do it later. And some company, we never did it. So a lot of company was so worried that we end up by doing it. You know, like when children are more self-aware of good attitude than their parents, and you know, they do things right because their parents are crazy. And so many people come up with paper and like, so look, this is your equity, I feel more comfortable, that's fine, yeah, it's fine. And few companies are like us, they did not care. And 3 weeks ago, we lived an incredible situation. One of the company we don't have equity in got sold. And we don't have the equity. We receive a check. They send us a check. Like, I even don't want to deposit the check. Like, and actually it's a big check. Like, they can have just say, okay, like, it's a lot of money, I can keep it for myself, why I will give it to the family? And you know what? We did not even ask them. Because in my mind, we didn't have the equity, I was like, okay, that's fine, next time we will have it. And they send us a check. That's a kind of level of trust and relationship in your professional life you want to reach. Because if you reach that level, you sleep well. That doesn't mean that there will not be other founders of that time period that will sell their company and don't send us a check. Of course there will be. But why do you want to punish everyone because a minority of people do things bad? That's exactly the kind of attitude you want to have with yourself, with your co-founders, with your employee, with your company. Because that's what builds successful startups. Because the energy you spend is focused only on one thing, building something extraordinary, not doing papers that anyway, in most of the time, will go nowhere because everyone will be bankrupt. Thank you very much.
So what you said about the democracy and also having a friend and someone being a manager. So what do you do then? You set up the company with a friend of yours, and you have a conversation where you say, I'm going to be the one taking decisions.
If that discussion takes more than 30 seconds, it's not a friend. Like, it's always obvious. It's always obvious. Like, look, when we built the family, we said, like Alice had that joke, Oussama lives in the future, so we will say what we will do. I live in the present, so I will do what we need to do. And Nicolas lived in the past, so he will explain everyone why it works. So you see, it's obvious. Yeah, like, we don't need debate.
Maybe because you had skills which were different skills.
No, that's the point. It's not a question of skills. It's a question of obvious. Like, again, you should see it the other way around. If you have 3 people in a room and you cannot decide who will be what, and it's not natural, it's just that it's not the right team and you should not go for it. You see, it works the other way around. Because every team that need to discuss that are teams that are fucked up. They are fucked up because they cannot say, okay, that guy is a leader, that guy is a visionary, and that guy will make pasta. Like, it should be obvious. It should not be a discussion. And if it's not a discussion, it's exactly like, I don't want to give personal life advice, but most of my friends that talk about, is it a good girl or is it a good boy, are screwed because it's always obvious. You know someone in love that come and tell you the 10 reasons he's in love for? It will be weird. Like, yeah, so I evaluated on a very good framework and it appears that is 95% compatible. You will be like, okay, what the fuck? Like, it will end up bad. Same thing with co-founders. If you need to sit down together and say, okay, so you are the leader, I'm the leader, no, you, me, you, no, me. Okay, me, okay, that's fine, me. Like, it means you are not a leader. Because it's like with animals. You know, in the jungle, sometimes people, they fight, but most of the time they don't fight because they know who is the biggest lion. So it's the same thing. The good thing with humans is not the biggest one that wins all the time. So it can be different.
But you also expect to have someone who's going to challenge you. So if from
Yeah,
the
but
beginning,
that's different. There is a big difference. Like, everyone should challenge you. If you say something stupid, you should be challenged. And everyone says things stupid at some point, because the leadership doesn't come down to challenge. It comes down to the fact that most of the time it works. Point. And when it doesn't work, you have debate. That doesn't mean that there is no fight. It just means that fight doesn't cost. That doesn't mean that you will never be in a situation where you will not agree. It just means that when you will not agree and someone takes a cut, you will be fine with that.
Now, you say the qualities are the qualities of the team, but what if...
Of the founders.
Yeah, of the founders team. But what if there's one of the founders that lack really of one of these qualities?
Yeah,
Is
that's fine. Sorry, so I was not clear. So that's the 5 qualities a team should have. And of course, it's almost impossible to have a single person that has the 5. So if as a team there is one lacking, I have the feeling that there is a problem because they are very logical with each other. You can be very complementary on that level of quality.
Yes, so you talked about equity. Is it the same idea with the pact of associates? You think we really should not do such a pact? Because some of my associates thinks it's really something good
so
to do.
The shareholder agreement and partner agreement or prenup. So let's be clear. The best legal advice I can give you is that you should do one. And especially because you should put a vesting and you should put on paper the very clear condition of how to work together, and that will protect your company. So that's the legal answer. And of course, I will not do a video saying that you should not have this kind of paperwork in place because it can save you hassle. But what I will say is that if you need to read that paper one day, is that it's always finished and it will go bad. It's a kind of trade-off. You should put it in place, but you should never invest more than 30 minutes putting it in place. Because whatever is writing down in that document will never matter if there is a problem. So take the most standard document, don't spend money with lawyers, don't make the lawyers more rich because they will be rich at conflict anyway. So whatever you put in that document will never count if there is a conflict later. And you have to know that if your company is very successful and you have a conflict between founders, the kind of nasty things that people can do to just ignore document that have been signed can be crazy. So don't think, like, I'm always worried that people take it as an illusion that what you are signing will protect you. You know, I will tell you a secret about France, for example. I don't know how it is in other countries. But every contract you sign have no value because you cannot make them execute by any judge. Like the shareholder agreement in France, value 0 legally. It's a secret no one will tell you about. Because you need that kind of document to agree on how it works. And let's say that you need that kind of document to have a conversation about how it should work. But if you think that that document will save your ass the day you have a problem, you are dead. Like, it will not work like that. The only thing that will save you that day is to have a better lawyer than the other side. So it doesn't come down to the document you had signed. So use standard thing. There is thousands of documents available online that you can use. Please.
You said that friendship is, you have to be friends before starting a company, but do you think that friendship can come from the fact that you are creating a company together?
Oh yeah, for sure. I had no Alice for a month before creating the family. So yeah, but
Did you fall in love with her at first time?
totally, on first sight. I mean, one of the things, you know, Alice was the first person in my life I had created a company with, and I will be fine to go on holiday with.
Okay.
I mean, and that was something new for me. Because I was the kind of stupid people that think that the most important quality of your co-founders are the professional quality. And it always end up bad, and at some point I realized that the pattern was obvious. Horrible humankind, incredible professional, and you are like, yeah, let's do that. Because it's very natural in the business world to be cynical. And that kind of cynic pattern thinking drive you to a point where you are like, oh, I don't know why he ended up like that. But actually you know, because he's a horrible person. And you know it from day one, but you are like, yeah, a horrible person, but so good. So now, I can tell you, if I'm not friends with the people we work with, there is no way they can work with us. And that's something I learned with Alice. And it works well. It works really well. It's something very surprising. And it's so counterintuitive. Because everyone learned you that skills are so important, that friendship doesn't have its place in the company, blah, blah, blah. But it's false. Because at the end, it's a question of human surviving together. And that, of course, again, it doesn't mean that there is no fight, there is no trouble, there is no tension. Like, who doesn't have tension or disagreement or blah, blah, blah. But it's important that you have that with people you love. Because when it happens with people you love, you always find a way to go over it. If it's with people you really don't like and you don't love, that's when problems start. Because they become a bank account, you know, like a debt. And you know, it goes like that, up and up and up. And at some point you're like, okay, now it's like, that's a bill. And you cannot have that kind of invisible bill with your co-founders. You need to be very, very transparent and be aware that sometimes you don't agree, but it's fine, because that's life. It will be crazy to agree on 100%. It will not be a company. It will be a kind of weird religious movement where everyone will be like, oh, yeah, sure, please. You know, no, that's not like that. But you can do that because you love them.
What is the main difference between your co-founders and your very first employees?
Oh, that's a good question. So, actually, that's a good question, and that is becoming a kind of weird debate. So, before it was easy. Like, not long time ago, the difference between a co-founder and a first employee is that the first employee will have a salary and it doesn't mortgage his house to work here. And the co-founder has no salary and mortgage his house, wife, and children to be in business. And the amount of risk and the level of risk that people should take before to build a company was so high that there was a mystical difference between being a co-founder and being an employee. And what happened is that the price of starting a startup decreased so fast, so exponentially, that now you have founders that have salary on day 3 or 4 because they have revenue and they bootstrap and blah, blah, blah. And the early employee doesn't have such a higher salary than them. And they don't really see the difference because the company have been created 6 months ago. And that 6 months doesn't justify that the early employee have 3% and the co-founder 30%. So there is this big debate around Silicon Valley about what should be fair in terms of equity compensation for the early employees and what will be the difference, blah, blah, blah. So I have the feeling that the answer will change. But for now, I think that the real difference is the amount of commitment that will be taken. And I think that's why you should be also flexible about the fact that there is multiple funding moments inside the life of your company. And you can be sometime be very generous, very late with equity. Like I was talking about that the other day because we have a company that is hiring a top profile and they already did 2 rounds of funding. And they offered to give 10% of the company to the guy. And every investor scream. Like, yeah, you cannot give 10%, it's the level of a co-founder. And they say, yeah, it's a co-founder. Okay, it's late founder, but he's a co-founder. So you should be ready to give to people, even if they come late, a lot of equity, because you have the feeling that is a missing co-founder that you are waiting for. Sheryl Sandberg is a good example of that. Eric Schmidt is a good example of that. Like Sheryl Sandberg was maybe employee 1,000, and she received 9% of Facebook. That was value 10 billions. You imagine it's almost $1 billion check, $1 billion check. Like which employee have this kind of level of remuneration? None. It's just that Mark Zuckerberg had the feeling that that was a missing co-founders.
What do you think of co-founders that are from the same family?
Oh, I love that. We are called the family. It's obvious. No. Like, I mean, like, you know, family business works. That's it. I mean, we see that a lot. Of course, if you have problem with your family, having a company will not solve any of this problem. But if you have an incredible family, it will be a huge upside. So, for example, I love couple startups. You know why? Because they succeed or fail so fast. Like, couple startups, never middle. Like, you know, once I managed a divorce in office hour. I'm not kidding. Like, we had that founder that told the other founder that they will break up and they will need to talk about who will get the children, and she asked for my opinion. I can tell you that's one of the most embarrassing moments in my life, because I wanted that the guy gets the children. So, just kidding. So, like, that kind of situation are intense, radical, and great. Intense because like you are living together, you are sleeping together, you are working together. What do you want more? Like, you know, there is not a single moment you are not together, and a lot of people don't survive that. But when they do, they are in a position that no one can reach, because the level of trust, the level of intimacy, the level of everything is so high that you are indestructible. And of course, it creates another kind of risk, but you should be stupid to lower this kind of risk if you really believe in what you are doing.
You didn't speak about the number of founders.
Ah,
Is there
yeah,
any
yeah.
rule or advice?
Yeah, because I don't like this question. I hate you. What's your name? Yeah. So I will tell you why I don't like this question. Because that's typically the kind of question where people take decision and you always have a counterexample. So you will say, the ideal number of founders is 2. But someone will say, yeah, but I don't get it. Oracle, there was 3. And you're like, yeah, Oracle. Yeah, but that one I know. And my cousin know a guy that know a guy. And they're like, okay. So if you do statistical evaluation of the right number of founders, it sucks. Because you never have the real data set. You cannot really do a linear regression around that. And there is thousands of studies. Like, you know, I'm a shareholder in Compass, startup genome project. They did a very successful article explaining that the ideal number is 2. But maybe statistically it's 2, but in your case it will be 4. So once something obvious, it's really, really hard to do anything in group. Like, think about buying a pizza with 3 people. It's a nightmare. Like, you will end up most of the time buying 3 different pizzas. So it's like every time you have a big number, you know, you are in a situation where it's not easy to take decision, blah, blah, blah. But again, sometimes it works. Like, we saw a company with 7 founders at equal shares with an incredible leader, and it was amazing. Like, I think it's one of the best companies we saw in our portfolio, and it's really against everything I believe in. Like, 7 people. But why? Because there's 6 slaves and 1 leader, and the leader is kind of communist, so he gave equal share to the 6 slaves. So how that's possible? Like, because the problem is that most of the time when you have this kind of situation, you have politics. So that guy is dictatorship enough to don't let any politics inside his team. Good for him. Like, and it's always exceptional case. So keep it small. I mean, 1 is not enough, 2 is good, 3 is start to be hard, saying the guy that are 3 founders. And 4 is start to be more complicated stuff. But again, It depends of your situation, depends of your background, it depends of the story, it depends of how you know people, etc. So, not sorry for that horrible answer, but I cannot say something better than that because there is not something clear to say around that.
I was wondering if everything you said about your co-founders, like they should share the same values and those 5 qualities, and that is more important than skills. Does it still applies with does it like the first person you work with?
No. So there is a big difference between how to select your first employee and how to select your co-founders. That's the question?
Yeah, it is, but not necessarily your first employees. For
Okay.
example, you can work with some people, but they're not your employees.
So you are working with people that are not your employee and not your co-founders?
Yeah.
What they are?
Like in my case, they're musicians. I cannot hire them because I don't have the
Okay,
money.
it's users.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, so it's users. So again, so of course users are not selected the same way than employees that are not selected the same way than co-founders. So I think the co-founders selection way is very specific to the co-founder. That's it. And everything else, it's different scheme.
Okay, so then skills are more important than the values?
It depends. The problem is you are talking about musicians, so I have the feeling very naturally that skills are important, and this is why you'll not take me. So yeah, of course, it's obvious. Obviously, this is why artists can be mean and horrible people, by the way, because when they are skilled, you can accept anything with them. So that's it. So again, like the way you need the way you need to select people is always function of the outcome you want. Why skills are not important for founders? Because the probability that the founders will be still here to run the company in 20 years is very, very low. But the probability you need them in important time scale at the beginning where you need to trust them at 1000% and you will be not able to do it otherwise is so obvious. So because the outcome you try to optimize is trust, you have this framework. If what you are trying to outcome is the value and return on investment of what someone provides, in that case, it can be a jerk. It's fine. Like, you can be a musician and be an horrible person. If you go on stage and play 1 hour perfectly and everyone thinks you are God, you can be whatever you want outside that hour. Like, people will always find a way to manage that. Because you have that. You're a genius. So that's why, by the way, most geniuses are kind of weird people. Because they are so used to be so top performers that things. But you cannot trust these people. This is why they do bad co-founders. So think always the outcome, and the evaluation will be obvious.
Most of the time, the co-founding team is not ready on day one, right? You find the co-founders along the way. Let's take a fake example. If I'm alone, on day one, I have an idea, I want to work on my project, and I'm sure that a friend of mine is the one I want to work with as a co-founder. Do I wait, or do I bootstrap until I try the market fit, for instance, and try to convince him along the way?
You should never wait. No one, nowhere. It's a very simple rule. If you wait, you are dead. So it's better to start alone than starting later. And it's not because someone joined you late that you don't give him equal shares. You should be just fine with that. And so the time frame becomes something secondary. And you know, some people are less comfortable about doing things than others. And some people need more conviction. And if you really want to work with someone, you should push until he says yes. You don't have any other choice.
When you don't have already some friends to associate with, how to recognize on a co-founder dating their culture or these qualities?
So,
how question to ask, in fact.
Okay, so the second question?
Yeah. No, it's the same question. How question to ask to recognize? To
what
identify.
question to ask?
Yes.
Sorry, okay. I understand I had 2 questions to ask. So, there is not a single set of questions you can learn and ask. And again, like it comes down to your capacity of convincing someone. So finding a co-founder is as much selecting someone than doing something better with someone. If you look at when we created the family, if you look on paper, Alice, Nicola, and I, it will seem weird. And a lot of people ask themselves how you make it work. But we make it work because we love each other, and that love creates a superpower that we change and adapt to go higher together. And so you should see that as a learning curve much more than at a state. But again, the problem is that there is people that are not able to, blindly love people around them. And so they will always be in a situation where they will think, I can find better. By the way, I read that article recently about why our generation was the worst dating generation ever. And I'm speaking about my generation, I'm 29. The article was saying that in a time where you have Tinder, you have choice, you have so many opportunities, you get paralyzed because you always think, oh, there is something better, there is someone better, there is something else I can find. And every happy people are people that don't care. Because they know that they are not with someone because he's the best one, because they are with someone because they love to build something with him. And it's exactly the same story with co-founders. Like, there is thousands and millions of people that are better than Alice. There is thousands and millions of people that are better than Nicola. But I don't care. Like, you need to be comfortable enough about the fact that at some point you've made a decision and you are stuck with it and you need to build it. So there is not something more than your intuition that can give you that, and there is nothing more than your trust in what you are doing.
Yes, but you told that on this team we have to have these qualities together.
Yeah.
So if only we are at ease.
But that's the problem. The problem is that you cannot look for every 5 quality together. You should not take that list like a checklist. You should take that list like a way to evaluate yourself and how big you are on that scale, and if you are able to be an entrepreneur or not. Like, sorry to say that, but 99% of entrepreneurs should not be entrepreneurs. That's what the list say. It's also a question that a lot of people will never succeed as an entrepreneur because they will not have the right quality, because they will not have the right luck, because they will not have the right pattern. So it's not like a magical formula where everyone will always find the people. You have people that are more lucky than the others. But if you have determination and if you are ready to do, there is only one way to do is to try and fail. Like, again, it's always the same thing. It's not about preventing failure, it's about accelerating the number of failure. Swipe right, swipe left, same thing. You need to swipe right more. So at some point you will match.
I wanted to come back to the topic of the skills. Yeah. Where I'm a bit confused is that, I know it's not a checklist, but at some point I feel like when you have the friendship, if you don't clarify the topic of skills, or if you don't make sure this person has the right skill for the company, yeah, then because of friendship, as you guys rely on each other, you can be a bit, deceived or upset when you actually realize that the person is not the person she was pretending to be. So,
okay, that's a good question. Look, I think you should see it the other way around. And I will tell you a story that someone told me. We have some friend that get a tax audit, and one of the co-founders did a mistake, and they got 80,000 euro fine. It's a big company, they are rich, that's fine. Everyone told her that the co-founder should not be responsible of this because he failed on that. And she always had the same reply. He did not fail on everything else. Meaning that skills are not important, not because they will not be failure, but because it's better that someone you love fail than someone you don't know. And of course they will fail. The only thing is that it's not a question of pretending you are someone you are not. It's because if you are a friend and you do something you are not comfortable with, because you are a friend, you will say, look, I feel uncomfortable doing that. I'm not sure I'm the best one. And maybe the other co-founder will reply, yeah, but we don't have choice. So do it, and it will be the best of what you can do. And that's how you build a team. And this is why most of the things that are done by the founder are replaced by top players when the company works. And that's why founders, like the job of every founder should be to be out of job. Like that's the best situation. But there is things where you will screw up, there is things where you will not be at level, and it's much less important than having trust between people and be sure that you can keep that trust level, whatever failure happens. Thank you very much.
Que la famille.